from the cobblestone streets of Paris to the manicured gardens of the royal palace. The year is 3092 and a chilled wind sweeps through the city, carrying with it rumors of a new terror that grips the royal court. A terror that strikes at the heart of their beloved Charles the Dauphin, the future King Charles VI of France, for it is whispered that he has lost his mind. At first, these rumors seem outlandish, the product of overactive imaginations and court gossip. After all, Charles is known as Charles the Beloved, a young king of only 11 years, who ascended to the throne after his father's death in the midst of the 100-Year War with England. And yet there is something undeniably unsettling about the king's recent behavior. Since an inexplicable psychotic episode in the summer of 3092, he has been plagued by terrifying bouts of madness that leave him unrecognizable. During one such episode, he is said to have attacked his own men with wild abandon, convinced they were enemies come to steal his crown. When courtiers rushed to his aid, he lashed out at them too, convinced they meant him harm. Others say that during these attacks, the young king spoke in tongues, or barked like a dog, a chilling spectacle that terrified those who witnessed it. And then just as suddenly as it began, the frenzy would end and King Charles would awaken with no memory of the attack, often believing he had just defended himself against invaders. These episodes are terrifyingly real, and they will continue to plague Charles throughout his life. But that day in 3092, there is another terrifying sign. King Charles awakens believing that he is not himself, but rather a peasant or even a woman. When asked who he is, he replies, "I do not know," a heartbreaking answer that shatters the hopes and expectations of his kingdom. This moment marks the beginning of decades of intermittent madness, each episode leaving the kingdom more battered and the king more lost. Charles becomes consumed by fears that his body is so fragile it could shatter at the slightest touch, hence the name glass delusion. Believing himself to be made of glass, he barricades himself in his chambers wearing reinforced clothing to protect his fragile form. He refuses human contact, certain that skin-to-skin contact will cause him to disintegrate. Some reports claim he would flee in terror upon seeing anyone enter his room, convinced they meant to destroy him. As Charles withdraws into his own world of shattered perceptions, the burden falls on others to navigate this crisis. His counselors and courtiers struggle to balance the needs of the kingdom with the king's deteriorating mental state. They make every effort to shield Charles from the outside world, hoping that by limiting his exposure, they can somehow slow the progression of his illness. But tragically, the efforts are in vain. Charles VI's reign would become synonymous with intermittent madness and a king who was frequently absent from both his royal duties and reality itself. In the following years, Charles's condition worsens. As the attacks intensify and the periods of lucidity become shorter and fewer, the weight of governing France falls increasingly on Queen Isabeau of Bavaria, Charles's wife and the mother of his children. Isabeau is a strong-willed, politically astute woman who navigates the treacherous waters of the royal court with skill and determination. She emerges as a pivotal figure, struggling not just to manage the kingdom in the king's absence, but also to secure the throne for her children. Amidst this struggle, Isabeau finds herself at the center of a maelstrom of competing interests, caught between the ambitions of the nobility and the demands of her ailing husband. As Charles slips further into his glass delusion, his ability to rule effectively becomes more and more tenuous. This creates a power vacuum that draws in the ambitious nobles, eager to fill the void. Among them, two factions emerge: the Armagnacs and Burgundians, who vie for control of the young king, and by extension, the kingdom. This struggle for influence would culminate in brutal civil war, engulfing France in chaos, and weakening the kingdom's ability to resist the English invasion. Adding to the mounting pressures, Charles and Isabeau's children grow up within the fractured walls of the royal household. The young prince, later Louis, witnesses his parents' struggles firsthand. There are times when his father, the king, does not even recognize him, a heartbreaking reality that underscores the tragedy of living within a broken monarchy. Yet young Louis survives these years, navigating a childhood that is far from ordinary, marked by a father who is often lost to madness and a mother who must balance her role as queen with the responsibility of protecting her children. Amidst the unfolding tragedy, Charles's condition continues to deteriorate. The glass delusion takes hold of his mind, warping his perception of reality. He becomes convinced that he is encased in glass, unable to interact with the world around him. This delusion transforms his court into a surreal theater of absurdity and desperation. His counselors and attendants are forced to improvise, adapting to his fractured mind's demands. They rush through royal business, sometimes forging the king's signature on important documents, ensuring that the wheels of government keep turning despite the king's incapacity. For Charles, these periods of lucidity are often filled with anxiety and fear, believing that the next episode may be worse than the last. He is trapped in a gilded cage, unable to fulfill his duties or connect with those closest to him. It seems as though nothing can pull Charles back from the brink, until one fateful day when the young peasant girl, Joan of Arc, arrives in the town of Vaucluse, determined to deliver France from the clutches of the English invaders. Joan's story is well known. Touched by divine conviction, she leads the French army to victory, driving the English back and restoring French morale. But beyond her military victories, Joan's impact resonated deeply within the fractured court of King Charles. For here was someone who commanded respect, who inspired the nation, and who seemed to embody the very essence of France. In Joan, Charles saw a reflection of what he once was and could never again be. The beloved king, whose madness had eclipsed his legacy, found a glimmer of hope in Joan's unwavering spirit. Perhaps Joan's most significant contribution was in re-establishing a sense of order and legitimacy to the monarchy. In a kingdom that had been teetering on the edge of anarchy, Joan offered a vision of unity and purpose. As Charles watched Joan rally the troops and lead France towards victory, he saw a chance for restoration, not just for his kingdom, but perhaps for himself as well. The years leading up to Charles's final descent into madness had been marked by a struggle to maintain order, both within the kingdom and within the royal court. Now, in the aftermath of Joan's victories, there was a renewed sense of purpose, a collective breath held in anticipation of what might be possible if the monarchy could be restored to its former glory. Yet sadly, this hope would be short-lived. Charles's madness continued to worsen, robbing him of his humanity and dignity. On September 16, 1422, Charles V died, never having regained his sanity. His passing leaves a void not only in the seat of power, but in the hearts of a nation that had suffered through decades of his erratic rule. His death would usher in a new era for France, one that would see the rise of his successor, Charles VII, who would go on to solidify the French monarchy's position in the face of the English invasion. But the shadow of his predecessor's madness would linger, serving as a reminder of the fragility of power and the importance of mental well-being. In the annals of history, Charles VI would be remembered as a king lost to madness, his reign marked by tragedy and turmoil. Yet his story transcends the confines of medieval France, offering timeless lessons about the human condition, the perils of absolute power and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. And now, dear viewers, we turn the discussion to you. What aspects of King Charles VI's story resonated with you the most? His descent into madness, his wife's cunning navigation of the royal court, or the emergence of Joan of Arc amidst the chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights enrich our understanding of this complex historical figure. Additionally, if you find our content valuable, we invite you to support us through the provided means. Your support allows us to continue bringing these captivating historical narratives to life. Thank you for watching and joining us on this journey through time.